During World War II, many destroyer classes entered service, burdened by design flaws, rushed construction, and flawed doctrines. Yet, when the war reached its most desperate moments, they delivered results that newer, superior ships never had the chance to achieve. This is the story of 6 destroyers that proved war doesn't reward technological elegance. It rewards immediate availability, adaptability, and the will to fight. By late 1941, the U.S. Navy's flush-deck destroyers, the WWII and Clemson classes, were relics of World War I design. Their narrow beams and flat decks made them wet and dangerous in heavy seas. Mechanically exhausted from years of deferred maintenance, they struggled to sustain their high speeds. Tactically, they lacked modern sonar and effective anti-aircraft armament, viewed as largely expendable. 50 of them were traded to Britain in the 1940 Destroyers 4 Bases deal. Despite their limitations, these 4-pipers provided crucial escort coverage during a desperate phase of the Battle of the Atlantic. The U.S. Navy used them for coastal convoys, while the Royal Navy converted many into long-range escorts with extended fuel capacity. In the Pacific, the 4-pipers' adaptability truly shone, converted into high-speed transports, or APDs. They could carry 150 troops for amphibious operations. Though they lost top speed, they excelled in the Solomon Islands campaign. Their expendable hulls and specialized davits enabled dangerous hit-and-run missions where modern destroyers could not operate safely. Life aboard these ships was punishing. APD berthing compartments were suffocating in the tropics, and in the North Atlantic, bulkheads froze with condensation. Their narrow hulls produced violent rolls of up to 40 degrees. Constant leaks created damp conditions, and the aging machinery demanded continuous effort. Early in the war, the 4-pipers were already ineffective against Japanese ships and aircraft. Even so, these readily available, mediocre hulls achieved more than highly capable late-war destroyers like the Sumner and Gearing classes. That arrived too late. The Italian Navigatori-class destroyer was conceived to counter large French contre-torpiller destroyers and entered service in 1929 with severe design flaws. Built for high speed and heavy armament, their narrow hulls and heavy superstructures made them dangerously top-heavy. Early refits lowered weight by reducing the bridge and masts. But true redemption came between 1938 and 1940. Hulls were widened with external side blisters and fitted with elevated clipper bows, dramatically improving stability and seakeeping. The rebuilt design proved itself in June 1942, when intercepting the British Harpoon convoy during the Battle of Panto. 2 Navigatori-class destroyers, Ugolino Bibaldi and Lancerotto Maloseio, screened Italian cruisers during fierce surface combat. Vivaldi was crippled by shell fire and engulfed in flames. Despite being immobilized, she restarted her propulsion and survived. However, this stability came at a cost. The added blisters and ballast increased displacement beyond 2,100 tons, straining aging turbines and sharply reducing speed. While pre-war trials boasted extreme figures, post-reconstruction combat speeds settled around 28 knots. This ended their intended role as high-speed interceptors and rendered them slower than newer Soldati-class destroyers. The navigatory reconstructions defy the assumption that fixing flawed designs is wasteful. Italy's constraints lay not in shipyards, but in access to raw materials and complex machinery. Rebuilding existing hulls conserved scarce turbines and fire control systems while relying on available steel and labor. Though speed was sacrificed, the result was a class of rugged, stable destroyers that provided sustained value. The Type 1 Hunt-class destroyer emerged from a rushed 1938 design process aimed at producing a compact, fast escort with destroyer-grade armament. However, Admiralty designers underestimated the cumulative weight of modern electrical systems and twin 4-inch mounts. Tests on HMS Atherstone in early 1940 revealed a dangerously low metacentric height, leaving the ships prone to excessive rolling. The Type I's were made usable through emergency corrective measures. Roughly 50 tons of permanent ballast were added low in the hull. The aft deck's twin 4-inch mount was removed, reducing the main battery to 4 guns, and the masts and funnels were shortened to shed top weight. The Type I's proved their worth in the confined waters of the English Channel and North Sea, particularly along Britain's east coast. Their rapid-firing 4-inch guns and anti-aircraft armament made them effective against German Schnellboats and aircraft attacks. However, The fixes imposed severe endurance penalties. WWII only abodes 234 tons of fuel and power-hungry turbines. The Typhies were inherently short-ranged. As fuel burned off, stability worsened, forcing crews to fill empty tanks with seawater, which complicated maintenance and logistics. The Type 1 Hunk class represents a salvaged failure rather than a design success. Adding ballast and deleting armament were reactive corrections to fundamental weight estimation errors. The class's true legacy lies in the lessons it provided, enabling the far more successful Type 2 and 3 variants. The Hermann type, 1934 and 1934A. Destroyers were undermined by rushed construction and an overambitious engineering philosophy. Two competing Hyperschur boiler systems, Wagner and Benson, were introduced without sufficient maritime testing. Both proved unreliable, plagued by tube bursts, suit fires, and maintenance nightmares. Though incapable of sustained operations in heavy seas, they excelled as high-sped offensive mine. Integrated mine rails allowed them to carry up to 60 mines, transforming them into short-duration strike platforms. The 1934s operated in British coastal waters, especially around the Humber, the Wash, and the Thames estuary to lay magnetic minefields that initially overwhelmed British countermeasures. Between late 1939 and early 1940, these sorties sank 67 merchant ships. Their success was offset by appalling availability. The high-pressure boilers corroded rapidly in saltwater. Complex control systems became failure points under stress, and hull flexing caused persistent shaft misalignment, requiring frequent dry dock repairs. A single sortie often demanded weeks of maintenance, earning the class the reputation of workshop queens. The loss of 10 destroyers at Narvik during Operation Weserübung was an operational disaster for the Kriegsmarine, but it cannot be blamed solely on the 1934 design. As logistical failures and fuel shortages were decisive, strategically, however, the class was inherently limited. Poor seaworthiness, extreme fuel consumption, and mechanical fragility confined them to mostly coastal operations. Among the Imperial Japanese Navy's high-ranking officers, the Matsu-class destroyer was ideologically suspect from its inception. It violated Japan's Kantai-Kasan doctrine, which favored elite high-sped fleet destroyers with massive torpedo power. Its modest 27-knot speed, simplified construction, and downgraded machinery symbolized industrial decline. In the fuel-starved reality of 1944, the Matsu was exactly what Japan needed: economical, survivable, and fast to build. They were completed in as little as 5 to 8 months, using modular construction, optimized for escort warfare. They carried sonar and hydrophones, plus a unit machinery layout that improved damage resilience. At Ormoc Bay in December 1944, Matsu-class destroyers, taken Kua, faced 3 brand-new Sumner-class destroyers. Kua was quickly sunk by radar-directed gunfire, while Take launched her oxygen torpedoes and sank USS Cooper. Designed as defensive escorts, they were repeatedly committed to offensive surface actions and high-risk resupply missions. The ability to carry troops and cargo degraded combat effectiveness, while the absence of radar fire control rendered their guns ineffective against U.S. ships and aircraft. However, had the Imperial Japanese Navy embraced the Matsu philosophy in 1941, instead of 1944, the protection of their tanker and freighter fleets might have altered the timeline of the Pacific conflict. By 1944, the Matsu was merely a guardian of a merchant fleet that had already vanished beneath the waves. Thank you for watching, and see you in our next videos.